Hello, Tom Levecki here with the latest edition of the New Theory podcast. First today, third time on the show, Mr. John Alite, former enforcer for the Gambino Crime Family, including the Guardians, and now a motivational speaker setting kids on the path. We are going to start off with talking about the recent events with the New Jersey Housewives and their kind of tussle with the mob. John Alite, welcome back to the New Theory podcast. How you doing today?
Good, Tom. How's everything?
I'm well. So I got a ton of questions. John and I were texting, so like, fuck it, let's do a podcast. Let's start off. So number one, Tom Manzo is one of the owners of the Brownstone in New Jersey, North Jersey. And it's my understanding that his father was a wise guy and got like literally found in a trunk in like 1985 in Hillside, New Jersey, and nothing was ever to be found. So it's kind of understood that that family might be at least peripherally associated with the Mafia. Is that your understanding, John?
They definitely got involvement. They had friends over the years. I don't know the brother that got in trouble. I know the other brother, Al, and he went to a football game with me one time with some mutual friends, Giant game, a couple of years back. And a nice guy, actually, gentleman, businessman. And, you know, we didn't get into who his friends were. I don't ask those questions. Yeah. He talked a little bit about my book, and that was about it. And we enjoyed the game, had a couple of drinks, and talked social stuff. And we didn't get into any of the street stuff. But nice guy, actually. Really, I like the guy.
I met him and know him as well. Seemed like a straight shooter. Seemed like a legit guy in many ways. So in this story, Thomas Manzo, this is all allegedly, by the way. John and I are not inferring anything innocent to proven guilty. But he's charged with co-opting John Perna, who I understand through the media is a made guy in the Lucchese family, to basically rough up his ex-wife and her husband. And this is my first question for John is, we're going to go deeper, is my understanding John Perna is a made guy in the Lucchese family in New Jersey. John, why don't you paint the picture of how a New York family like the Lucchese's operate in New Jersey, and where do they kind of cut off with the Cavalcantes, which is homegrown to New Jersey?
Okay, so let me start. Joe DiNapoli is a Lucchese captain that was in prison with me in Allenwood. His brother Vinny was also a captain with the Genovese family. Oh, wow. These guys were in prison with me. Vinny was more out there. He passed away since, but he was more out there talkative. Joe was very quiet. And Joe was involved with Michael Perna. Back, it's got to be about 7 years ago, they were involved in a bookmaking operation in Freehold, New Jersey, at a gym called Alite Gym. There was all kinds of police at 5:30 in the morning, lights and FBI, and it was a joint task force. So I look out my window because I live on the corner of where it's going on. I actually go to the gym, and it's literally on a corner from where I live. And I just got home, and I walked down a block to see what's going on. Because originally I'm looking out the window. I said, "Is this for me?" And I just got home, so I'm wondering. And it was for Perna and Joe DiNapoli. And Joe's a quiet guy. I don't personally know Perna. I heard things about him, but I'll give the history. Yeah. In the Lucchese family, the Jersey faction, Tumac was the boss. Yeah. And at the time, Vicamuso takes over in New York, and he calls them in. And he calls in, at that time, Marty Tessetta, his brother Michael Tessetta, and Tumac. And he wants a lot of money off them. He wants, I think it was about 50% of whatever they were making, he wanted them to turn into the New York crew. Ouch. And Michael and Marty started fighting with Tumac, and there was a hit put on Tumac. Tumac ends up cooperating, and Michael and Marty eventually, after going on the run, they think they're going to get killed. They settle it with Vicamuso and Gaspipe, which obviously powerful bosses. The treachery of that life, the funny thing is the treachery of that life is Marty and Michael would come on the weekends to see Gotti Sr. at the club when I was there. They'd come every week. So they're Lucchese guys loyal to the Genovese family, yet they're coming to see Gotti Sr. So they intertwine stuff. So I don't know if somewhere along the line that played a factor in why Vic was saying, let's kill these guys. But they eventually settled it after about a year. Vic calmed down, and they went back into Vic, and they took over. Now, Carlo Tessetta was in prison with me also. Carlo I actually like Carlo a lot. Very quiet. He looked more like a biker, and they're relatives, the Tessettas and Pernas. So they're a close-knit family. Their sons are all made, and the family's been on the street in those areas forever. And so I had a lot of interaction with these guys over the years. Not business so much, but personal and jails and things like that. And Riggy, who was the boss of the Cavalcanti family, his son-in-law came to me when he defected away from them for protection in the construction industry, which you met Sean. Well, he goes by Jimmy, but you met Sean with me several times. Right. So, I got involved a little bit in taking over some construction sites in New York City when I came home and in the building trade. But so I have a lot of personal experience with all these guys.
So you're one of the few guys that, and I was with you, you won't say names, but I was with you in New Jersey. You get recognized all over. So I was with you in New York, with you in New Jersey. You get recognized wherever you go. And I'm not just talking junk here. This is the truth. And a certain level of deference too, because who you were and who you are. My question though is, if I'm a wise guy in New Jersey, right? And you saw both sides when you were with the Gottis and stuff, and Jersey was probably like inferior. What was the benefit of being a made guy in New Jersey with the New York family over just rolling locally with the Cavalcantes and not kicking up 50% and not dealing with the politics? What was it? Did you have more strength? Did you get more resources? What was the benefit of rolling with the New York guys as a Jersey guy versus rolling locally? Just out of curiosity.
Well, the Cavalcanti family actually was involved. Riggy was actually involved with Gotti.
Okay.
And ended up getting them locked up. So but the advantage obviously is the power behind the New York families.
Got it.
So although you got to kick, which they didn't want to kick that kind of percentage, and they were running basically on their own wild at the beginning. I'm talking about the Lucchese guys.
Correct.
And when Vic pulled them in, people don't want to give up money. So the idea of giving up money, but also there's an increase of money when you get involved with that power structure. So there was an availability of construction, bookmaking on a different level with the New York faction, obviously. And again, they didn't have any choice. Even if they went against it, they would have lost their lives. I mean, they could have maybe tried to, contest it and fight back, which at the beginning they went on a run. But if they would have contested, eventually they would have killed, especially in the year I'm talking about when I was being raised in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah, there was some serious.
Everybody was shooting and killing. There was too many guys. And then you got guys like, Nicky Scarfo, who sent his son when he went to prison, little Nicky, to the Lucchese faction, where he got straightened out with these guys in the Jersey side through some friendships to keep him alive because, he was going to get hit. And, so the structure, again, is, things changed over the years. Got weaker by some of the guys. People think sometimes by numbers is strength, and that's not really how it works.
Sure.
And I think that's why the mob got decimated the way it did over the years. They lost the idea of structure. I'm always talking about structure and fear. And I think you lose both those qualities when they water it down the way they did, and nepotism and things like that. But again, on the Jersey side, the guys I met, like Carlo, I thought were gentlemen. I thought Joe DiNapoli was a gentleman in jail. Now, what they do for a living, in prison, we didn't discuss that. Hello, goodbye, small talk, and that's it. But they were quiet, quiet guys. And any of the Tessettas I met, Marty and Michael, when they were younger days, they were always dressed nice, gentlemen, quiet. So I really don't, you guys hear me talking bad about a lot of guys. And I don't have respect for them. These guys I happen to like, actually, in the Jersey side. I thought most of them were good guys, and their family. And from what I understand, the sons are pretty tough kids. And later on, they get straightened out. But I don't think that, like a lot of these guys, you got nepotism. And I talk about, like recently, Michael Francis. Yeah. These guys ain't gangsters, he's a, to me, he's just a con man that's well spoken, and he does talks like he does. He'll never mention my name. I give you an example. He's a Machiavelli guy, and people that aren't schooled in this life don't understand it, but he'll make reference towards me, the little side remarks, but he's talking about me without saying me, because people ask, why did I do that? I says, because if you listen to some of his interviews, he's got a little wise mouth with the way he talks, with the backdoor stuff. And, I've been in his life legitimately, not spoiled like him. And, he's just a complete con man. He invited Ori over, and Ori's putting paperwork all over about him, so I invited him with me, and, I'll give him a shot at and discussing something back with me if he thinks.
I actually saw that, the Vlad interview, and I want to go on that thread in a minute. So hold on. So, because I want to unpack this a little bit. So I may roll with the Lucchese's and New York family because it's almost like a franchise. I mentioned that name in New Jersey or anywhere, it's going to get me far. So you kind of alluded to the value of being a New York guy in New Jersey, right? But you're saying 50%. What's a normal kick-up back then? Was it 10%, 20%?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, 10% is really you're giving your skipper a percentage. It depends on your friendship with your skipper, the kind of money you bring it in. Every deal is different. But something that people don't understand in the world that's out in your republic, the DeSetas and the Perners have a name in Jersey,
yes, they do. Almost
of the popularity of what Gotti had in New York back in the day.
That's a fair.
These guys, a family. It's a family within a family. They're legitimately a family that are running things with clout. Gotti had a name without really the family like the DeSetas and the Perners had over the years. And I think the difference is, pretty much, the Perners and the DeSetas had the ability of being liked legitimately, not disliked. I think Gotti got the reputation of being disliked because of a lot of things. But, we want to talk about the Lucchese family now.
Well,
and I think...
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So, no, because I'm chopping at the bit here because I'm trying to, obviously it was different in the 80s, 90s than it is now, but back then, right? So you get straightened out, you get made, right? So the Perners and the Taketas were historically, with the Lucchese's, their children become made and they get involved with the family. It's all alleged, obviously. They become members. I'm kicking up money upstairs, right? What's the benefit aside from the power? Like if I go to jail, does my wife get an envelope every week? Does my lawyer bills get covered? Do I get access to better lawyers? I know like John Gotti used Ray Cohn, which is Trump's guy, for the Willie Bratton thing. Like what's the benefit for, obviously being a tough guy and having clout and people fearing you? What was a real benefit? And I actually I'm going to smirk, but what was a real benefit when it had a benefit to being made?
Well, again, let me...
Sorry, go ahead. So I know where you're going to go with this. Oh, a little bit of technical difficulty. So we had quick technical difficulty on that. So I'm going to ask John again, what was the benefit at that time? We'll get into if there's a benefit now, but what was the benefit of being made back then, John?
So I'll go back to the Perners and the DeSetas. They're family within a family. So when they go to jail, they do help each other, I would assume. Yeah. And I think so from what I understand with lawyers and envelopes and family. And their benefit getting involved with a stronger faction like New York was, number one, they stayed alive. Yeah. They would have got hit. And two, because when they want these bigger construction jobs in North Jersey and New York, Vic Amuso and Gaspar made sure they got it and they got involved. So there was things that benefited them by getting involved, and also in the bookmaking industry. So, things grew for them substantially from where they used to be. Now, as far as guys like me, you have Gotti, who used Richie Raybach, was Gotti Sr.'s lawyer, who became my lawyer because Gotti gave him to me. So my benefit was people knew when I went to court, when I stabbed the guy through a throat in Fort Lauderdale. I ended up beating the case where I got pinched at it because Richie Raybach was defending me, and his attorneys knew that was Gotti's lawyer. They asked if I worked for him. Yes, I did. And one of them had amnesia and didn't want to testify and help his friend. So there's benefits like that are seen but unseen. And, when guys talk about, Gotti Jr. say, he tries to change when I defected away from him after they found out he was an informant and all that, recently came out in Gangland. Jojo Carrazzo corroborated what I said, the attorney, that Junior was right. But he forgot the fact that Richie Raybach defended me up till 1996. So if there was anything that was going on with me, Gotti would have known about it, Senior, because I'm using his attorney. And that's the reason why he was comfortable letting people use his attorneys, because he could keep an eye on you. And he knows exactly what's going on with your life. Now, Richie Raybach, for the people that don't know, was Bruce Cutler's partner.
Yes. He's
actually the one that brought Bruce Cutler around, and Bruce Cutler kind of snaked Richie down. And Richie was a hell of an attorney, actually, for people that don't know who he was.
Nice. So you painted a good picture in terms of the Jersey side of things and sprinkled in New York, which is relevant. So according to the story, Tommy Manzo, went to John Perna's a made guy, comes from a good Mafia heritage, if that's okay to say. And basically, as I understand, is lump up my ex and her husband, in exchange have a wedding at my place and probably comped it or reduced it or whatever. We all know those weddings probably about $50K at least. Maybe comped it or maybe gave $30K off, whatever that is. Here's where I struggle with this. Number one, in the story, they have John Perna doing it himself with another guy. So my first question is, would a maid guy do that? Like, it seems almost like too movie-ish for me. Walk me through that.
Well, the picture the government's going to paint is the payoff came through the catering, obviously.
Yeah. And
the Perna's lawyers are going to picture that it's just another catering hall. Yeah, maybe we know the guy, maybe we don't. Yeah. Maybe we're a little friendly, maybe we're not. There's nothing illegal with that. Yeah. The illegal part of it is Manzo refused and lied about them having an event at his catering hall, and they came in and got the paperwork. Who knows what's on that paperwork? Who knows if he wrote something on that paperwork? So, we got to see what the evidence really is.
Got it.
The Pernas, would he do it himself? I mean, maybe. I mean, I used to do work all the time by myself. So these are a hands-on family. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I got respect from. When you hear me talking about different guys, I don't respect them because I don't respect the way they talk, carry themselves. These guys, from the dealings I had with them, they were always gentlemen, the whole family.
Got it.
So I like them. I like the way they carry themselves. But that doesn't mean they didn't do this stuff or not. I'm not an expert on as far as the evidence on the case. I just, by what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, there's going to be problems for all of them because of so many people are involved in this. That the chain, usually somebody drops and breaks weak, and who knows if they got audio or videotapes, who knows if they got wiretaps, who knows who's in the background, who else is a witness. So they're going to have other things besides what we know. And they got several problems on other cases, taxes and this and that are going to come along with it because of the paperwork that the government took out of Manzo's place.
Now, you historically designated street guys as mob guys as either, and this is documented that you're the very few that were both, but usually you're a hitter or an earner. It seems like the Pernas put it work, but they also did huge gambling rings. Pernas in general, as far as you know, were they hitters, earners, or were they that rare hybrid of both, as far as you know?
I think overall, as families, the Setters and the Pernas, they're both. Okay. And again, that's why you're going to hear me talk a little bit more respect with them.
Yeah.
Because I think they're gentlemen. They don't run around like big mouths. And the fathers, I think, raised the family the right way. I mean, I liked Michael and I liked Marty when I used to see him as a younger guy. Yeah. They were sharp guys. They were gentlemen. They came. So I think they were, true gangsters as far as when I talk about throwback gangsters. And I think that they were a little of both, the family. Not out there hitting everybody, but they're aggressive and they're intelligent and money makers. So they had a well-rounded ability as a family to run the way they did for a while. And Tumac was, at the time, when they were all together until they broke up, Tumac was more of a maniac. You know, he's a mad dog. His son, I met his son a handful of times, or not even a handful, a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the son as a kid, but I knew him after they defected. I ran into him in Jersey. Believe it, he was in Jersey, local too. So he's not a guy that that maybe he hit at one time, but when I seen him, he definitely wasn't hiding. And, times change and people realize it's a different era. So, I don't know what kind of work the kid did. I know I heard he was a strong kid when he was growing up. But the father was, a wild guy, a mad dog. But listen, the way Tumac took off and hid and the way they had to hit on him, you could be as wild as you want to be. But in that era, you're not lasting long. And he understood that. That's why he took off. And I guess that's why he made the decision to cooperate, because he wasn't going to stay alive too long with gas pipe and Vic Musso looking to kill you.
So and again, because you got access to different eras, so very few access to different eras, and I don't want to over glorify it, but I will say there was a time that Elizabeth, New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey, Paterson, New Jersey, obviously Howard Beach to this day, where you grew up in Queens, Bensonhurst. If you were local, Italian kid, even like an Albanian guy like you who was connected. If you knew somebody and there was some like local, and I don't get like over glorify like The Godfather in the beginning, but if you had a problem with something in the neighborhood and you were connected, and you kind of ask for a favor, and we'll talk about what would be exchanged in a second. But like it used to be a community thing with the mob, right? It was almost like no drugs on the street. I remember you told me, and Gene Borello, great interview. Would shake down drug dealers and be like, get off, basically it was almost like the spiders eating the flies, to be honest. And it had a local presence to it that if you were connected, you felt safe and you were safe. When did it stop being that? When did it strictly become about money?
I think at the end of the 90s, it was really over. And again, because they water it down, you got complete jerk-offs that are made guys now. I mean, clowns. They're not earners. They're not tough guys. They don't understand the street. They're not street. That's why I'm always talking about legitimate street guys. Listen, Elizabeth, New Jersey, anybody that's been around, it was on a smaller stage, but it was the mob. It really was. Yeah. I was in jail with Jackie, so the D'Norcio, me and Jackie did time together. So I like Jackie. I got to tell you the truth, because there's so many mob guys I can't stand. And there's so many guys I think are complete frauds and punks. And they never did a fucking piece of work, or they didn't know how to earn money. But the North Jersey guys I met, like Jackie DeNorth, I like these guys. And, people say, well, I thought you talk against them all. Listen, I'm talking to kids not to hit the street. I'm not telling these adults what to do for a living. But do I dislike a lot of guys? Yes, these guys I happen to always like. I did time with a lot of them. I know them personal. I did a little business with some of them. And I happen to like the way they carried themselves and their swag. So when people say to me, well, you're always cutting down the mob, I'm cutting down the jerk-offs in the other 5 families in New York, because 9/10 of them are useless. So this is the reason why what you're saying from the old days in Elizabeth and Newark and Trenton, you had a different feel of the mob and the respect for it. As the years went on, you got one clown after another. They think that 7 guys jump one guy. They're gangsters. I mean, they have no clue about the life. They don't understand it.
Well, sorry, I had to push back on me. So here's the thing, though. So let's go with, and then I want to expand, because we're kind of New Jersey Housewives and Hollywood. We'll get to Hollywood in a second. And then I actually do want to talk politics with you real quick. But the first thing is the old John A. Light, right? And we're friends. And I have a reasonable beef, right? Just something that didn't go the right way that I'm not going to go to the police for. I come to you as a friend and I say, hey, John, I have this problem. Now, kind of, because I'm trying to get a feel for the Tom Manzo and the maid guy thing, Perna thing. Are you more like, hey, listen, you know what? Yeah, I'm from the neighborhood. I'm like almost the sheriff that used to call you. Would you do something for me at a friendship? Would I owe you a favor later that like I have to do it? Would you ask me for money? Like I want to get the feel for the transactional nature of, hey, I'm going to help you out, but what am I getting myself into?
Nah, you know, I had ability making a lot of money. So when people ask me this, I got friends I did a lot of things for.
Yeah.
I shot guys for friends. I killed guys for friends. I stabbed guys for friends. I did a lot for my friends, actually. And a lot of the guys I use the word friends really weren't friends. I looked at them as friends, maybe being a little naive. And later on, I found out they weren't friends. But for my true friends, I would never charge anything. I would never anything. In the back of your mind, maybe one day, if you're my true friend, you don't owe me anything.
Yeah.
If you're not my true friend, down the line somewhere, yeah, you owe me something. But you know as well as I do, because you had meetings with me in North Jersey and different places, New York, and we ran into different wise guys that run away from me. They won't even look at me. And they were in the same places sitting there. So, you know, guys talk a good game until they see me, you know. So I think the respect level is when guys know you for your reputation, and I go see them for you, I think it would end at that. But a situation like this, I'm not sure, because this is on a personal level. So if I was friends with Manzo and let's assume he really wanted a favor, and I'm not saying he did, and I'm not saying he did it, because I really don't know. I don't have information on the case. I would tell him, listen, buddy, forget about it. You're not 25 years old. You know, get divorced. You do well for yourself. You're a good-looking guy. You're an intelligent guy. Your brother's a nice guy. Yeah. Go find another girl. I don't think you're going to have trouble finding another woman.
Correct.
I don't know the situation. I don't know if the guy was, you know, irritating him and agitating the situation. I don't know if the guy was a complete jerk off, the new husband or boyfriend, who I think became the new husband. I know they had a home invasion and he got beat up again and robbed. So I don't really know, are they, you know, both situations, you know, have to do with the same thing? Is it separate situation? Did the guy get himself in other trouble? All I know is the relationship of the Manzos, how I know them, and I don't know them well. I like them too. So I think I had a conversation with the other brother. I think so. I think I had one conversation with him. Yeah. And I don't remember specifically. But, you know, people want to hate you because you're doing well or you're good looking. Or we all have different problems, relationship problems. And who knows what really is true here. I'm curious myself to see what goes on here. And, you know, I'm going to follow it a little bit. And this is because of the way I know this whole family. I want to watch it and see it. And because I met the guy and I went to with his brother, went to a football game, and I like the guy. I want to see the outcome and see what happens. And, you know, listen, there is no winner here. I mean, unfortunately for the wife, for the kids, whatever's involved. And this is back to why I do the Johnny and Gene show. For the people that don't know, I got that podcast. And it's more about the kids, you know. And I talk all these stories to tell them there is no winner, right? You see all sides have nothing but aggravation. They're getting hurt. They're getting robbed. Guys are going to jail. They're losing money. Businessmen. So where's the street a winning, you know, ticket? It's not.
Yeah. Now to go into transition a little bit, and thank you, Johnny, because you provide a lot of color. But really quick, actually, to close up the loop of the Manzo issue, if there was an informant and they submit their plea, would we know if there's an informant yet, or would that pop up later?
No, that's going to pop up later. They just locked them up and indicted them, and it'll pop up later. They probably, you know, in my opinion, most of these cases they got somebody.
You got somebody, okay.
You know, I don't want to keep going back and forth, but look at all of my cases. I mean, you know, guys don't realize I had two factions of families, bosses. Besides Gotti meeting them, you know who Mikey Scarsdale Bernardo is, and all of their guys. So there had to be a good 7, 8 captains and made guys in the Gambino family, along with Junior, were talking on me. And then you have the whole Bonanno crew, bosses down, 14 of them, that were, you know, also cooperating before I end up, you know, defecting. So, you know, there's so many guys that are informants, cooperators, rats, whatever word you want to use, that the life is nowhere near what it was in the 70s, 80s, 90s.
All right. So I want to, so the reason why we brought this up is because of Hollywood, right? New Jersey Housewives and the whole bit. So I'm fascinated, and I heard of like the Dragna family, and there's like a few Gambinos out that way. How big, or wasn't it not big, the Mafia in LA? Give me your, because I know you had some dealings there, and you know a lot of guys that way, or new guys that way. You had Kenji Gallo on your show, who came from that way. How big, did the Mafia ever have a foothold in Hollywood and in LA, as far as you know, John?
Yeah, I mean, of course they did, and they had, you know, there was a show I did. I forget who I did it with, about Frank Sinatra, the radio business, how to, you know, forcing DJs to play music. And, you know, they definitely did. What amazes me at this era is how a guy like Kenji Gallo gets involved with Teddy Persico, and they take him in, not really knowing him. Just because somebody in Hollywood, in LA, you know, a mobster, says, yeah, okay, this kid's all right. I mean, listen, this occurs all the time. When I was in prison in Allenwood, Danny Marino okayed his cellmate that was from Kentucky and was wearing a wire, got everybody locked up. So, you know, he okayed the guy. I mean, the problem is there is no okaying guys in this era anymore. You don't even know, you know, who you're okaying. Just because he's your cellmate and he's cooking for you or cleaning for you or is being your do-boy doesn't mean you should give an okay to the rest of us that the guy's okay, because the guy walked in federal agents into Allenwood prison to set everybody up. So I think when guys like Teddy Persico, who comes from, you know, his father and his uncles, everybody are bosses, a royalty to Colombo family. Yeah. How do you just openly let this guy into your circle like that? It amazes me when I hear it. And then I got to say, are they real, you know, are they, you know, school street guys? Because I would never allow that if I don't know them.
So, and I want to bring a name up. I mean, I think you kind of hit on him because you did Vlad TV and millions of views. And I had Mike Francis on the show, so full disclosure, you know that, I believe. And Michael was a great guest. But Ori Spotto is a name that kind of came out of nowhere and is really dogging on Mike Francis. And it's kind of a name, and I, you know me, I not that I know these people personally, but I'm pretty well versed on kind of mob history. This thing kind of came out of nowhere, and it's kind of claiming to be the godfather of LA, and he's really dogging Michael Francis. Do you know a little bit about Ori and that whole story?
Well, I tell you, one of my friends recently talked to Ori, and I called Ori, and I had a 5-minute conversation with him. Now, I'll tell you about the street, right? Because I grew up in the streets on 5. I know he's not full of shit. I knew he had paperwork on Michael. You could tell the way he's talking. Yeah. He's not a rat, Ori. Yeah. He said Michael was. And you knew the way he's getting aggravated and worked up, because sometimes I get worked up like that, where you're yelling and screaming and you're really aggressive. Now, did he make some money? Without a doubt, Ori made money. He doesn't claim to be a tough guy. He claims to be a maneuverer, whether it's banking, stocks, this, that. And, you know, I happen to say this guy is real. You can tell he's real. Yeah. You know, now he ain't no gangster. He never claimed to be a gangster. He said that he had family members in the past in Italy, and, you know, he knows a little bit of history. You know, does he embellish? Who the hell knows if he does that? But he's a legitimate guy. I mean, a legitimate guy as far as what he's saying, I believe is pretty accurate. Now, and it's not because I got hatred towards Michael. I just think that Michael is, you know, like Gotti in so many ways. They exploit their fathers. Then, you know, they've been made by nepotism. He was a doctor. He doesn't know what side up and down of a gun is. And, you know, he tells the same story from 40 years ago with oil. He ain't got much to say. The problem is no one ever challenged him before. And he made several mistakes recently because he double backs on everything he says. And he made a mistake by back-ending me and talking the way he did. So he should know I'm a very, very aggressive guy, right? Physically or on, you know, media. Yeah. And he made the mistake of going after Ori, who obviously is intelligent enough to bring paperwork with him now. And then as far as a guy like Vlad TV, I think he's a complete bitch because he had the paperwork about Gotti, and he turned the story to get some, you know, I guess to get some juice on his show. Yeah. They said I was the top 10 on his show last year. I don't give a shit about any of this. He's a guy that calls guys rats, whether it's 6'9", a young kid, but he's too much of a bitch to sit in front of you on camera. He won't sit in front of you. So, what kind of respect are you going to get calling everybody else a bitch? He's getting wealthy off of calling everybody a bitch or this and that. But I don't like when it's like CNN. Tell the news the way it is. You got the paperwork. Don't flip on me so you can get some controversy. Just be a straight shooter when you're doing a talk show with me. So I did one show with him, and I'll ask him too. Why don't you sit in front of me and talk the way you talk? I says, and see if you do another interview with me. I says, well, do one again with me, but this time sit with me. I said, I want to hear you say that because I'll bitch slap the shit out of him too. I mean, these guys talk like idiots. And, he's another guy, never got a jaywalking ticket. And I hear him abusing guys constantly. Yeah. So if you want to be a gentleman, then run your show like a gentleman. But if you want to bullshit, he had some guy, I forget who he was, some half-ass rapper, black guy, that he kept pushing the guy to talk against me. And the guy really didn't want to. And the guy, so what are you trying to do? You're trying to make the guy a rat asking why I didn't get more time? Yeah. Because that's really what you just did. And you already have the paperwork. He was given the paperwork prior to me even coming on his show. And now Jojo Carrazzo confirmed everything in his last couple interviews with Cosa Nostra News and Gangland with Jerry Capisci. That and this ain't difficult for guys that know lawyers or mob guys. It's easy to get the paperwork and see that guys like Ronnie Warner made those statements. Me and Gotti are partners. And I mean, these are rat statements. So going back to Ori, he knows what he was saying. And you knew he was animate. So I knew he was going to be up to something. And now he came forward. I mean, we don't need that paperwork. We're mob guys. Yeah. We know that Michael cooperated, obviously. Yeah. And I know Sonny. And Michael didn't know I knew his father. Yeah. Obviously, because he didn't have a great relationship with him. And I know his brother, Johnny. And I had a situation with Johnny where he was going to kill Gotti's cousin, Johnny Boy Ruggieri, who's passed away since. But he had him tied up. Now, Johnny was a street guy. You could call him a junkie. I hear guys call him a junkie and this and that, or a rat or whatever. All right, maybe he flipped, but he was a tough guy. So was his partner. I knew them both, and they're wild guys. I mean, you can't take that away from him. Okay, he cooperated now. But, when I hear Michael talking down about his own brother or father, I'm saying, how can anybody else respect him? Don't say anything, but you're no different. You ratted.
Yeah. So we're gonna one more topic before we go, and we're not afraid to talk about anything on the show because that's why we have the show. Politics.
Neither am I.
you historically, in the beginning, not that you stayed away from politics, but you kind of stayed in your lane. Like, hey, here's what I'm doing, here's what's going on. But you've been more vocal lately in terms of politics, which is okay because you have a platform now, and you have, arguably 50 to 100, 200,000 followers, maybe more. In terms of your ecosystem, right? And so you have a platform and you're sharing your opinion. So give us a little bit about John Alite's opinion on what's going on in current state of affairs in politics.
Well, Value Entertainment, Patrick, I don't know if you're watching.
Yeah, it's huge. And
I did his show with him, and I don't know what I got. I think I got close to 4 million views on that show. But Patrick, I happen to like and respect because he's a gentleman. He's in your face. He asks the right questions. Very informative, and he touched up on his own show on politics. So I'm going to get why I feel the way I do. I've been in jails. I've been a violent guy. I was involved in the system with some bad cops, some bad prosecutors. I just did something on some of those prosecutors. A warden that chained me to a chair for weeks while I was in solitary confinement because she wouldn't send me out to the hospital. She said that was too dangerous to send out, and abused me. So I understand Black Lives Matter. I understand Hawk Newsom. I understand in theory. But here's what I don't understand, because I have a ton of black friends. Yeah. If Black Lives Matter, they matter in Chicago too, where they're killing each other black on black. So you need to address that problem, right? So I'm very vocal about this because it's not right to these kids that are getting killed all over the place and then going to prisons forever. Because if you're going to do the right thing, don't just go one direction. And the other thing is and he's an educated guy, Hawk Newsom. He's a lawyer. I like him. I think he's an intelligent guy. He says he's not behind any of the violence. So you need to get out in front of it if you're not, and be more vocal that you're against the violence. But then he misses the mark, right? Here's the mark. You got AOC and Blasio, and they're talking about defunding the police. How about defunding their salaries? Yeah. Start for who the police department works for. They work for them.
Yeah.
So why aren't their salaries getting defunded? Because they're talking about defunding $1 billion in New York, right? Or they just did.
Yeah.
How about defunding de Blasio salary? How about defunding AOC salary? How about defunding their pensions? And how about them then talking out front? Then I'll respect them a little bit more that their message is real. Now, why isn't Hawk Newsom going after that? Why isn't he not going after what we really care about as a public, right? We care about the train station. How if you take a train, they clobber you with the cost, or a bus, or the tolls. Start where you can really defund. And then let me hear what, like this imbecile mayor in Seattle did. And just now she wanted to clean up CHOP. So you cost 3 times the cost of money now because you had to send in 90 agencies today since 5 o'clock this morning. So all that money that's wasted could go to the inner cities. So I'm in agreement. I'm the one that talks about inner cities and kids like me. And it doesn't have to be black. It doesn't have to be white. It doesn't have to be Spanish. But I'm not in the belief of giving away anything free, because I think anytime the government does what they do, they keep you under their thumb. So I'm not for big government. That's why I'm against the party. It's not that I'm so, conservative and not democratic liberal. I'm against anybody like the mob that holds you under their thumb and then they control you. See, they want bigger government, but what the minority groups don't understand is bigger government means bigger control of our lives. It means drones in the air. It means more cameras. It means more regulations. And those same mayors are the ones that are telling the police to ticket us and to change, to surcharge us and to stop us. And then they're pointing at the police. So this is back to Machiavelli, like the mob. I understand the mentality. And this is the reason why I'm so aggressive, because I come from those same neighborhoods all the minorities come from. And I'm in agreement with them, but I want opportunities. I want 2 for 1 on you while you're in jail, 2 days, good time for 1 day. I want better rehab, for kids that are coming out, more halfway houses, more ability to get a job after you've been arrested. But you can't blame the police department. I'm completely against this because I was a gangster. I was a criminal. 99% of them are good guys, 98. Some of them got attitudes. So check that and change that. Yeah. But you can't tell me, and the problem is it's a big con on the government's point, because I can, and I've done it with Martin Luther King Jr. and I've done it with Malcolm X, and these guys didn't like a certain party because of the control factor. Just what I said. I says, the more money they give, the more control they have. Do you know the mayors now in Minnesota and the government positions are asking for private security for $4,500 a day? The same thing they're saying, get rid of the police department. This is how full of shit they are. They're asking to have private police security for $4,500 a day. That $4,500 a day could go to the minorities in inner cities and to education and to programs and job opportunities. This is the part where is Hawk Newsom? You're an intelligent guy. You're a lawyer. You're not a dummy. You understand this. Why aren't you attacking where you should be attacking and get off the police? Because the police really, if I'm going to be the way I used to be, violent, I'm not going to get anything. You're going nowhere. You're going backwards. So as long as he wants Black Lives Matter, he's got to stop the violence. He's got to get everybody that follows him, like Martin Luther King Jr. did, no violence, and get where you want to get. Get to township meetings, get to hall meetings, get to auditorium meetings, but stop the violent crap, because I'm the first guy to tell you I'm against that then. Then I'm against, if they're going to continue allowing that, then I got to say that everything you're trying to do is being defeated by the violence, and no one's ever going to follow you. When you try to shove something down people's throats, they're not stupid. You're killing the cities. Everybody's going to move out of New York. I mean, as it is, de Blasio's got to be the dummiest. I don't care what party he's from. He's got to be the dumbest bastard in all of politics around the world, or the close second is this AOC. That's why I'm saying let them defund their paychecks, and then I'll agree with them. And don't live in the mansions, and don't use police security. Yeah. And then I'll agree with you. We don't need the police, because they're saying 2 things. Oh, the public, you don't need the police. But us, yeah, we need private security. So what is that shit? Yeah. And then they're charging these exuberant amounts of money. That could be going to the school systems. That could go to job opportunity. I believe in job opportunity for everybody. And that's what I'm getting at.
All right, so there's a lot there, and I don't think
I'm going to run for congressman pretty soon, by the way.
And I know you personally, and I had a sort of subject, but I know you personally, and you've grown up in, you are of Albanian descent. If anything, you're in the fringes of the law. You serve in state prison, federal prison, overseas, and now, and so I know your heart, but your actions too. Like you're speaking to young kids not getting caught up in, because that's the funny thing. You know this better than anybody. If I'm like a blood on a crip or in a gang, it's like it seemed to be bad. But if you're in the mob, it's like, ooh, that's fancy. No, like you said it all yourself. These guys are all pieces of you know what, right? But and your heart is, hey, I'm going to train these guys or try to, if I could, affect a few and get them out of that life, I won. But here's a challenge, Sean, and you're doing what you can. So I respect that. But it's in like the batter of the cake. Like, how can we prevent for them to even get to that point, right? How can we prevent them to even have that option of cutting that off where kids, young kids, can go to school or get, my parents came from Italy, right? And didn't speak the language. And they moved from Elizabeth to Roseville Park, and now I jumped to another town. And to be candid, I was able to acclimate, John, because of the color of my skin. Like my parents got, prejudiced against because they didn't speak the language and moved to like an Irish neighborhood. They got like, roasted by them. But like by being Caucasian, like it made it easier for me to acclimate. Even though I'm in
I don't agree with that. Yeah. I'm going to tell you why. Yeah. I'm Albanian, and Albanians know we've been suppressed our whole lives. In the Ottoman days, all our ancestors, from communism to the Kosovo War, my whole family's been slaughtered. I've been in jails, and my skin is what? I don't consider myself, I don't know what I am, because I don't know if you consider it white, whatever. I don't like these surveys about white, Spanish, black. I think they should get rid of all of them. Yeah. So I think that's another, thing to say. I say it to my own family. Stop making excuses for our lives, man. I've been in jails my whole life because I wanted to be a criminal. I wanted to take shortcuts. Yeah. Some of the cops that arrested me, I have respect for. The guys that arrested me, I was a criminal. I wanted to live a bad life. And same thing with these street kids. They know like I know, and when you get these spoiled white kids running around with their signs, I said it before, you're running around with your signs, you think it's cool. Well, then why don't you go to these families in the inner cities and give half your money to them? Every week, you take your paycheck if you care so much and go to them. Go to the inner city. I'm talking about the white kids now. Yeah. Go to all these inner cities where the other day, I think it was a 5-year-old, yesterday or the day before, another girl got shot in the chest, 5 years old. Go to her mother and father and take that rich money you got or that college tuition you're paying for and give that mother some money of that little black girl that died. I lived this life. I have black friends. I have Spanish friends. I have gang member friends still today, even though I'm not involved. I have bosses of a lot of gangs and that are still friends of mine, and we talk and we have some conversations. Some we go back and forth and argue. But I'm real. I really care about these kids. And what they need to do is get these kids from the inner cities and have representatives from each neighborhood to come into an auditorium and talk and say, what do you really want? Because if you really want change or you really want to be a gangster still. So it depends on what you want. Because when I was young, you couldn't talk to me. All I wanted to do is go out and rob, kill, bookmake, be a gangster, sell drugs, heist, so you got to be honest. That's how it starts first, like you are with your own kids. But I grew up with best friends of mine being black. I grew up with some of my friends being Spanish. I still stay in touch with all these people. And it has nothing to do with the color of skin. It's about opportunity. And when ball players are all saying, and they're making zillions of dollars, and actors and actresses, and they live in these areas, why aren't you giving back? There's some that do. Don't get me wrong. Some are really, they're great guys and leaders and all. But then there's others that leave those kids in the neighborhood, and once they leave that neighborhood, like Al Sharpton I talk about, he's an instigating bastard who stays with all white rich politicians. He's loaded with money. He exploits every black situation. And his kid goes to the most richest white school around. So when he talks all that nonsense, you're an instigator. You're not a helper. So I get very passionate with it because I really care about my friends and their kids that are in these neighborhoods still. And I tell my friends, get your kids the fuck out of that neighborhood. Get them somewhere else so they don't grow up like us. Yeah. Because it's easy to jump in there when you got no money. And I said it over and over again. Why aren't the owners that talk all the shit, or Drew Brees, that I got no respect for now, by the way, because you're a man, you said something, and then you dog it and you don't stick up for what you say. So he ain't saying it out of the heart. He's saying it out of weakness. I talk from the heart. So you gave $55 million to New Orleans. You really want to do good? You really care about what you're saying? Your wife writing those letters? Well, how about giving, like I say, 5,000 tickets a game to every inner city kid and their families since they're babies, so they see a different part of life? Because when I was a kid, it was 50 cents to go to a game. Although my father was broke, he can get us there. Yeah. How are you going to take these kids to see another part of life? We didn't have bicycles. We didn't have ice cream cones. I didn't have nice sneakers. I was just like all these kids from the inner cities. And I come from a suppressed family background. Yeah. And I could make excuse for my life, and I don't. All I'm saying to the government is give opportunities. There's a difference. Help them in jails. These governors are locking everybody down because they want to kill the economy. They can bullshit all they want. And it's like the nursing homes, because my dad's in there. And I'm going to go all over on politics because, when you go to prison, you go to a behind glass, plexiglass, and you talk to your loved ones. Yeah. Why can't we do that in nursing homes? How hard is it to build a little glass enclosure and we can see our family every day like we do in prison? But these governors really don't give a shit about the elderly. They're letting them die left and right. So how intelligent you got to be to put a $5,000 box up so you never have to enter the nursing home. And the nursing home, they bring the patient into that glass enclosure. We come in on the other glass enclosure, just like we've been doing in jails for years. This is very simple. But they're bullshitting us. And this is where I want to sit with a guy like Hawk Newsom, who has the right idea, but he's not fulfilling it to where it should be. He should be talking about these politicians' pays and all the pensions. Take that money they're stealing and all these toll roads and put it into the infrastructure of our communities, not the Middle East, where they spent $9 billion, whatever they spent, right? Because if you really care about the infrastructure of our kids, it would be done here, not in the Middle East. Or you wouldn't have 1 million Americans homeless on the street. And that's why I said I get into this, because I'm passionate about, really, I am raised mixed racial. Yeah. I wasn't raised in my Christmas parties, house parties, my friends' house parties. We have every nationality in there and every race. So I talk from my heart. I don't talk from politics. Yeah. And I want to see a change in a good way without the fucking violence, because I have grandkids and I have, a future of, you want to see the right thing in this country for all these young kids in all these neighborhoods. And you're doing it, I may agree with something you're saying. I may disagree with what you're saying. That's what makes the country great, the power of free speech. I did have Al Sharpton on the podcast. Listen, I give him an opportunity to talk in front of me too, because here's my opinion. And if he wants to, he might say, I don't give a shit what this guy says. He was a killer. But I say to Al Sharpton, you're a piece of shit because you exploit your own people. And I really care about your people. Here's the difference. I don't take no money from your people. I stick up and talk for them because I want them to have opportunities. Same things with these kids in jails. Yeah. Let them come home, give them 2 for 1 for good behavior. Don't keep them in there 30, 40 years and destroy their lives. Give them a second chance at life. Give them job opportunities.
One last thing. The jail reform bill that Trump signed, I understand it's actually having a positive effect.
Listen, again, I'm a big Trump guy because he's not racist. Not for anything else, and it has nothing to do with politics. The guy has done the most for the black community in the history. And if people again, that's why I said I like to talk to Hawk Newsom. Tell him who put in the most money into universities and colleges for the black community. And Tim Scott wrote the bill. It was Trump. Same thing with jails. It's Trump.
I'm a huge Tim Scott fan. But that being said, though, specifically, because this is kind of back in your wheelhouse, if I may, the justice reform bill, as far as being kind of close in that world, are good guys getting out? Are good guys getting fresh starts? Walk us through that.
Listen, the more they work on, it's a first step, what he did with the reform bill. And the more education and opportunities. And I know some serious killers in prison that as they get older, they advocate for the young guys not to do the wrong thing. When I was 17 years old and I got locked up, well, I think it was the first time I was 16, whatever year old I was in Tampa, Florida, I actually got locked up. And there was an elderly black guy that pulled me on the side. And I was trying to act like I wasn't afraid, and he laughed, and he was in there for 2 bodies. And he started lecturing me from the minute I walked in there.
Wow.
You know, and he legitimately cared about not seeing me end up like him, he said.
Wow.
You know, and I didn't want to listen in those days. It took me years and years and years of time. And sometimes kids ain't ready for it. And then there's other kids that are ready for it. But every time we save one, it's one that is having a decent life. Yeah. And it's one who has children and grandchildren will have a decent life. And Denzel Washington said it. You know, go get what you want. He grew up with guys that were all in jail doing 30 years and he has a different life. And you know what he said? Because I had a father. So, you know, life's about one time around, and to give these kids when they're 5 and 6 years old to open their eyes to opportunities as babies, to go to these sporting events, to give them something they don't see now. You know, when a 5-year-old girl gets shot in Chicago, last week also, but just 2 days ago, where is these white spoiled little bastard brats with their signs? Why don't they go there and go see? She's black. She's not white. What, you only got to get shot by a cop? I says for them to come out and say Black Lives Matter? I don't get it. So, you know, they're just full of shit because they're not living. I lived a life of crime. I lived a life on a run. I lived in jails. I've been shot. I've been stabbed. I hated cops. And the truth is, I hated them because I was a crook and a gangster at the time. Now I'm a legitimate guy. And the same guys that locked me up, I actually respect them, friends with. They're not all bad. There's bad in everything. But have conversations, right? But what I don't like is what Minnesota's doing. They're asking for private security. They're just full of shit. You know, and this is where a guy like who has a voice, Hawk Newsom, go after them. Go after their salaries. Don't stop now. Get rid of that mansion that de Blasio lives in. You know, you want to cut things? Well, cut where they live. You're the mayor. Get out of that mansion. Go take all that money and you can build another 100 houses with that money for inner city kids if you really mean what you're saying. Or Pelosi or any of them that are filthy rich. Go pay with the people that are homeless. And this is what gets me because these kids aren't just numbers to me. They're my friends. I go down to Camden. I grew up there. And I see the way everybody lives there, whether they're some white, Spanish, or black. Why ain't anybody helping them? Where's Governor, this imbecile Murphy that's filthy rich? You know, this is the truth. And I don't care what party they are, but we have to live in New York and New Jersey. And I just think that between Cuomo, de Blasio, AOC, Murphy, they're a bunch of thieving, lying imbeciles. And you need somebody like Hawk Newsom that can go out and say, or talk to me, because I lived it. And then we'll have a conversation and let's go try to help some kids because I really care about them. I watch my friends get killed. Yeah. I was involved in some of those murders against people that killed my friends. So I know what it is, but don't con us because I hate being conned and I hate being under somebody's thumb. And I don't want to see a drone over my head. And I don't want to be told this is America. We got to stay in the house. This ain't China. And I can't believe the imbeciles in the world that are listening to them staying in. Go out of the house, open your business. Are you crazy? Why are you listening to them? Listening to what? There's a constitution. Go out of your house and make your money. And the same mayors and governors are saying they don't want the police. They're sending the police and the governors to strangle us. They're the ones sending them. So start where it's at. That's the governors and the mayor.
Listen, we're going to put a link to the John and Gene show. John, you're generous with your time as always, so thank you for that. We covered the whole gamut, and we'll put a link to the show. And John, listen, as always, man, nice seeing you. I can't wait to meet you for a drink when all this nonsense is over.
My book's still out there, by the way, Gotti's Rules. People by George Anastasia that want it.
I'll put a link. Best-selling book, Gotti's Rules. One of the best. I'm a big mob book guy. One of the best mob books I've ever read because it's first. And John, thank you for being on the show.
Hey, I really appreciate it, Tom.